Tam Devam Kamsachanuramartanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we are meeting after a long time. We were discussing the 23rd verse. We have already discussed that of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So we were discussing the vibhutis or the glories of the Lord. So the different things of Prakriti, the different aspects of Prakriti, and the different beings, the different inanimate as well as animate objects, they reflect partially the glory of the Lord. Then what's the fun? I mean, if the Lord is much more beyond all these glories which are revealed in nature through His power, then why do we have to single out certain people or certain beings? The idea, the Lord says, is that the greatest among each species, though this is not an exhaustive list, there are so many beings, but there are some beings, special beings like human beings, there are devas, there are adityas. So our scriptures talk of many beings, both subtle, gross beings like animals. We have uh, we have animals, we have plants, then we have inanimate objects like mountains. There are so many wonderful creations of nature, animate as well as inanimate. But among them, there are some beings, some objects which are greater than all the objects in that same species or the same category. For example, among mountains, there is one mountain which supersedes, which is more important than the other mountains. Among all the Adityas and among all the Devas, among rishis, among men of knowledge, among the forces of nature. So Prakriti has, Prakriti's glory is reflected through everything because God is all pervading. But we single out because Arjuna here wants to know in what way the Lord Ishvara is different from the Jiva. That is his fundamental question, though he does not ask it specifically. But the Lord, out of his compassion, says, I'll show you a glimpse of my glory, just as wealth distinguishes the wealthy man. You see, the wealth that he possesses distinguishes him from other men. Otherwise, what is so special about a wealthy man? There are other people who have different amounts of wealth, but some billionaires, some richest people of the world are appreciated or admired by people. Though it's a gross way of appreciation, but still they are appreciated. And it reflects partly the glory of the Lord. Though they, wealthy people, may think that is their glory, but it's the Lord's glory. So to bring some kind of humility in the minds of Arjuna, and through Arjuna, through to all the other aspirants, even Arjuna should not think that he is one of the greatest generals. So he will name that maybe in you the glory is reflected more than all other generals, but that doesn't mean the power comes from me. You have to understand this. The Lord is the controller. He is the Maya Dhisha, the controller of Maya, the controller of Prakriti, the controller of Shakti. Dhisha means one who controls, Adhisha, Maya Adhisha. So Ishvara is also known as Maya Dhisha. That is one of the words which is used in the Gita. So here we discussed in the verse 23rd, which I'll just recapitulate before going to verse 24, that Rudranam Shankaras Chasmi Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam Vasunam Pavakas Chasmi Meruhu Shikarinam Aham. Shikarinam means among all the peaks. Now, what is so special about this? I discussed this in the previous class. Rudras, according to our scriptures, this is what our Shastras say, our Puranas say. Gita is not just the essence of Vedanta or the Upanishads. The Gita is also Gita discusses the greatness of Prakriti as well. Some of the aspects of Prakriti which are considered by the Lord to be the specimens, the special, with those with special characteristics who stand out among the species. So Rudras are some beings. Uh, Puranas, all Puranas do not unanimously say how many are there, but the widely accepted names are, as I told you, Ajaikapad, Ahirbudnya, Veerabhadra, Girisha, Shankara, Aparajita, Hara, and Pinaki. Like that, there are different names. So 11 Rudras is the standard which is accepted by all the scriptures, though the names vary a little bit. So among them, Shankara is supposed to be the greatest among Rudra. I think the worship of Shankara or Shiva and Rudra is also compared. Rudra Prashna and all, there are so many wonderful portions of the Yajurveda which are chanted by followers of Shiva. So it is not impossible that the idea of Shiva has come from Rudra. So, and one of the names of Shiva is Shankara. So here he says, among all the Rudras, Veerbhadra and so many others, I am Shiva, I am Shankara. So we cannot compare it with the Trinity, the Holy Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. Whether it is the same Shankara, we need not. But among the Rudras, he is definitely the supreme. So the Lord says, whoever is supreme amongst the different categories of beings, different species, different inanimate objects, I am found, my manifestation is more in them. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna also we see, Thakur used to go and see great scholars, great pandits. He himself went to visit Vidyasagar. And then when somebody asked, why do you go to meet these great people? They may be great in their fields, but are they spiritual? That was the question which was posed. Sri Ramakrishna corrected them. See, when some people attain some kind of greatness, even in the gross world, even in nature, that is a part of my power. So naturally, Ishvara, it's not that he is partial. Because they deserve it, they are born as the supreme, as the best among the species. Like in animals, the lion is supposed, he will mention that among all the animals, I am the lion. So the cosmic function of the Rudras, according to, we discussed this last time, but I'm just repeating it. The cosmic function, if Devas have one function, Rudras have one function, is the literal meaning of this. If we go to the etymological meaning, the real meaning of Rudra is to make, they have the power to make men cry. So you may ask, why worship a person who makes you cry? So as Swamiji says, it's often pain that takes you towards reality than pleasure. So maybe in that sense, even the Rudras have some role to play. So Shiva comes, why does Shiva destroy? That is the question asked. If he's a god of destruction, if he's terrible, and with the help of Kali, he destroys the whole universe, he destroys the gross to give you the knowledge of the pure Brahman, pure existence. So each aspect of God has a role to play. So here the role of Rudras in different 11 Rudras which we just now saw is to make men cry. Cry means to suffer misery, so that they understand the true significance of life. In reality, what does life do? What is the goal of life? Is it pleasure or is it shreya, knowledge? Knowledge that leads you, frees you from bondage. So crying of the people is, but crying in the sense, any kind of sorrow in particular is always for some kind of gain in prayer or shreya. That's the idea here. If people cry, as Thakur said, some people cry for money, if they lose money. People cry for so many things. They cry for their wife, their children. So why not cry for God? If you cry for the worldly things, people cry for various reasons. And the role of Rudra is to make you cry, so that you try to get the higher at the cost of losing the lower. So when you are crying because of some pleasure has gone away from your life, prayer, then slowly Nachiketa is told by Yama that one should go after the Shreya, that which is good, even though it is unpleasant, you go after it. That is Shreya, that is good. So the characteristic of Rudras is to make them cry for Shreyas. So Rudra and the Ishvara, when he comes as Shankara, he makes you cry in a gross way, but gives you in its place Shreya. He takes the prayers away from you and gives you Shreya. The pain of losing the prayer is compensated by Shankara by giving you Shreya. So Shankara, among these 11 Rudras, is the doer of good, as his name indicates. The very name is Shankara, means the doer of good. So through distress, he takes the sadhakas direct towards, he takes them Godward. Because without spiritual anguish, we see in the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter is named as Vishada Yoga. If Vishada was not there in Arjuna's life, then he would not have asked Sri Krishna about the need for spiritual life. The second chapter onwards is all possible, is all the advice is given, the knowledge which Arjuna gets is a result of the Vishada which happened in the first chapter. So some anguish Rudra creates in the for all human beings. He makes them cry so that they run after the Shreya at the cost of the prayer. So through distress, he takes the sadhakas directly towards God. And spiritual anguish, or Vishada, it is known, purifies people very quickly. So Rudra, though his way of working is negative, the result is you end up with Shreya and you end up purifying yourself. So Yakshas and Rakshasas, now there are two categories. They are the celestials, as I said. The former of these two groups are very fond of acquiring wealth, Yakshas. That is why when Yudhishthira went, he was confronted by these Yakshas. These are all different beings. You can see these Yakshas even in human beings. It's not that they are supernatural beings. People who are fond of acquiring wealth, and the Rakshasas are keen to hoard. One is Yakshas acquire wealth, but maybe they are good and they spend it wisely. It's not bad to spend the wealth which you are acquiring, is not bad. But if you hoard it, then it is, money can be evil. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna could not hoard anything. He simply gave away because he could not want the burden of hoarding. So then we discussed how the Kubera was there, the Lord of fabulous wealth whom we worship. All these ideas, the Kubera and all those things, they are not cock and bull stories. You see, they convey a spiritual idea. And whoever among men strives for on right lines and saves money becomes a yaksha. Yeah. So whoever among men strives for on right lines, means following dharma, the path of dharma, though of a transitory nature, he wields power. Somehow he wields some power by, and therefore it's a glory of the Lord. So rich people are not necessarily evil if they use it for good purposes. That is the idea conveyed here. And the Lord says that Mathur Babu, for example, he did so much, of course, because he was inspired by by Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna forced him to do so much of charity. So in the end, he ended up spending his money wisely, though he was not very keen to do all these things. But because of his guru, Sri Ramakrishna slowly converted him. And instead of hoarding money, he ended up spending the money. Rani Rasmani, she built a huge temple. Even today, it is the source of blessing for countless people. So that is how this money, Yakshas and Rakshasas. Yakshas are those human beings. We can compare them with beings who create wealth, which is not bad, from the relative standpoint, than Rakshasas who are acquiring money to hoard it. So it is better not to become a Yaksha than a Rakshasa. Both are equally inferior. So similarly, we have this two categories. We have Vasus. Among the Vasus, he says Pavaka. Vasus are different forces of nature. They are the personification of different forces of nature. And these Vasus are 8 in number. They are land, water, fire, air, ether, moon, sun, and star. They constitute the whole gross structure of nature. So that is how Prakriti has been represented. Whatever is there in Prakriti, you see, everything is covered. Land means Prithvi, water means liquid, all liquids, water, anything that is flowing, that is watery, is included in water. Then there is fire, that is energy, air, the ether is the space, moon, sun, and the stars. That constitutes the whole universe. I mean, the visible universe that we see. There are other objects, but these are the broad classifications. They are known as Vasus. So, who are these Vasus? They are the personification of all these inanimate things in nature. Of this, Pavaka, Pavaka, Pavaka is the origin of Pavaka. Pavaka is, or the fire, assumes various degrees of heat or warmth, and it is very essential because for us the sun, though sun is there, but still it is the uh, fire that we see in the universe, the energy that is sustains life in the universe. So even the Agni in the Jatara Agni, that's why they call digestion, the force that keeps a human being alive. It is the food that we eat. So Anna is also considered as Brahma because of Anna and because of the Jatara Agni. It is a Agni, the power that digests our food. So that is also mentioned. So any kind of fire is a special manifestation of Ishvara or the Lord. Now we come to the Mount Meru. Why Meru is considered to be the most supreme among all the different mountains. There are Himalayas, there are many, but Mount Meru, because of its unique position, you see, all these things have a figurative, I mean, you have to understand, Mount Meru is, of course, in height, if you see, the Himalayas are much higher. I mean, in height, Mount Meru is not, but Mount Meru is a special place. It is the axis around which all the heavenly bodies rotate. That is what is believed. It is supposed to be dividing North India and South India. One has to cross the Meru. That was the myth belief. Agastya Muni crossed Meru. If you cross Mount Meru, then you are in the south. So even Rama, everybody had to cross this Meru. That means if you divide the whole earth into southern and northern hemisphere, that's what they believed, Mount Meru is at the center. And they found that if we go to the top of the Mount Meru, all the heavenly bodies, they seem to be rotating around its axis. Now, how far it is true as far as cosmology is concerned, I don't know. But it is an allegorical representation of the spinal cord. It is also known as Brahmadanda, the spinal cord in the human structure. So the science of yoga extols it, they glorify it as the golden Sushumna from which all forms of sensations emanate. It is consciousness that gives it, the Sushumna, its brilliance. You see, all our nervous energy is, as it were, the focus of all our nervous energy is in the spine. That is what our rishis discovered. And it is the Sushumna through which the spiritual energy has to flow. If one has to come in contact with Ishvara or realize one's oneness with Brahman, the Kundalini has to rise. Kundalini is nothing but nerve energy, the nerve force. It has to slowly, through spiritual practices, rise through the Sushumna. So this Sushumna is the Mount Meru. It is allegorical. Of course, Mount Meru is just a mountain. But that is the central theme of our spiritual life. How much of the Kundalini has risen and how much of it passes through the Sushumna, and from that all the other sensations, the world that we see, all the other nerve endings and all the things that we do, that we perceive, They are all subservient to this spinal canal, and in that spinal canal, the Sushumna, the energy is, you have to force it to flow. Unfortunately, it is flowing through Ida and Pingala. That is why we suffer, because our sensations, they become gross. We are attached to the body. All the afflictions of the body affect us, affect our personalities, because they are gross, since they are not passing through the hollow canal, which is compared with Mount Meru. So it is the supreme among all the mountains. This mountain is a reflection of the Lord, because this is the ideal of life. It is the goal of life, which every sadhaka, every aspirant aspires. So they use these symbols, this allegorical representation of all the uh, Kubera, the Yakshas, the Rakshasas. We have to encounter everything that is mentioned in these. That is the idea. When you are earning wealth, for example, just try to find out, are you a Yaksha or a Rakshasa? Are you hoarding it or you're spending it wisely? So even in a gross way, for people who are very gross, for them also there is something to learn. And Sri Krishna is explaining that because in some of these species, though they are gross, I am found to be more manifest. So if you meditate on Meru, then you end up meditating on your spinal column, and the Kundalini, you try to make it force, to try to make it so that it passes through the hollow Sushumna. And that consciousness gives us the brilliance. So that is the idea. Now, the Devas also, according to mythology, they go to Mount Meru because the senses and the prana, the Devas get their superior power because they are not bound to the senses like the Rakshasas or the Asuras. So they have to, it is also symbolical. Why do you go and mount? You can meditate in Himalayas, you can meditate on any other mountain, but they say if you go and meditate on Mount Meru, that is how our mythology explains, the senses and the pranas come under control. So they are, instead of adhering, because of our the nervous energy flows through the spinal cord, the Ida and Pingala. That is why we are bound, sense bound. We are bound to our prana, we are bound to the senses, and anything, any disturbance outside disturbs us internally also. But if we go to Mount Meru, that is the symbolic, of course, and try to realize that the Kundalini, the power that passes through the hollow, will give us more and more consciousness. So the Lord now says, I am the Meru, that is, I am that Kundalini, that Shakti, which makes you more conscious and less gross, you will adhere less to the gross body. Not that it will vanish, a little bit of nervous energy will always flow through the Ida and Pingala, but the idea is, if you meditate on the Mount Meru, so the Devas also meditated there so that they could realize more, manifest more and more consciousness rather than manifesting a jada or a gross, manifesting our gross senses and body, which will take us down. Now we come to the verse 24, which is Purodasam cha mukhyam mam vidhi partha brahaspatim senaninam aham skandaha Sarasamasmi Sagaraha. Now he is taking some other inanimate objects. Now, Purodasam, among the household priests. I briefly started this, I just explained the meaning, but let us now discuss in great detail. There are two categories of spiritual aspirants. One are household priests, others are priests, but they are not involved in any ritual. They are priests, but they do higher kinds of worship. So the household priests are a different category, but even among them, they are definitely inferior than the rishis. Rishis are also householders, but though they are married, they don't do this simple things. Thakur Sri Ramakrishna, though he belonged to a Brahmin family, they did not do Shraddha and other things. So there is a category, there is a gradation. Just as in animals we have grades, and finally we come to the lion, the king of all animals. So also here among the householder priests, I am Purodasa. So we'll see what it is. And cha mukhyam cha, I am the chief. Among the householders, I am the chief priest, that is Purodasa. Mam Vidhi know me to be that chief among householder priest. Brihaspatim Senaninam. Brihaspati among all the generals, Brihaspati, no, among all the, I am the chief among, I am the Brihaspati in among all the, in the Purodasa means the household priest, I am the Brihaspati. Brihaspati is also a household priest. So among all these household priests, I am Brihaspati, but among all the generals, I am Skanda. Skanda is Kartik. So Skandaha is supposed to be a great general. He was very heroic. Among the two children, Ganesha was supposed to be wise, whereas all the strength Kartik had. So in combination, mere strength will not give Shakti. Mere wisdom also will not help. So wisdom has to be combined with strength. So that is the idea behind Ganesha and Kartik as the two children of Parvati or Shakti herself. So among Senanis, he is supposed to be the general, the Lord among all the generals. So the Lord says, I am the greatest among generals, and that is Skanda. Skanda means he is Kartik. And among all the lakes, I am Sagara. So definitely there are small and big lakes, but the ocean is the biggest lake. So if we see now why among Purodasam, that is householder priest, Brihaspati is great. So the function of the priest is normally to do some kind of ritualistic worship and see that society runs in a particular way. They are not useless, because if there is no restriction, if there are no rituals, then people will behave as they like, just to control them and not be very gross at least enjoy the world, but do it in a very systematic way or in a restrained way, in a restricted way. So it is a sanctified code of worship, code of conduct, you can say dharma. So dharma is there. Artha and kama are legitimate as long as you follow dharma. Otherwise, if you use illegitimate means to earn money or even to enjoy your desires, then you will be miserable. So Brihaspati is a household priest. He tells you what to do, what not to do, how to behave in society. And it is a sanctified code of conduct. They believe him. They obey him rather. And if we are householders, okay, we will obey what the injunctions that he has laid down for us. So that is why it is this sacred duty among the devas. So he is a deity of great eminence. Among devas, he is supposed to be the lord of this householder priest. See, devas may be great, but still they are considered to be worldly from the standard of, if you see the rishis and the spiritual aspirants, the great prophets, the avataras, and also the celibate saints who practice brahmacharya, these devas, because they are householders, they may be great, they may have a lot of power if they follow the right path. So Brihaspati is the greatest among them, though he is not the greatest among all beings, but among the lower category of human beings, the lower category of spiritual people who are the householder priests, Brihaspati is great. So seekers of learning and those who want worldly wisdom, they pay homage to Brihaspati. Even today that Brihaspati is worshipped because in many of the yajnas, they chant his name, especially Satyanarayan Puja and many things which have come down from this. If you see, the main purpose of rituals is, we know that you can't give up artha and kama. You have a lot of desires. You have a lot of desire to earn wealth. Okay, do it according to the injunctions laid by the householder priest, that is Brihaspati, just to control. So he is definitely endowed with some attributes of Ishvara. That is why he says, among all the household priests, I am Brihaspati. Now, godhood can be reached only through right understanding and right execution. See, we have to understand, but we have to put those ideas into practice. Swamiji says, Hindus are very, very good as far as the philosophy is concerned, but as a race, we are very impractical. He says, the deficiency of the Greek culture is that they love arts, science, and many of the things they have developed which will benefit humanity. But unfortunately, the Greeks were pleasure loving. Because of that, they all used all the knowledge they had. The love for art and culture degraded, and they that is the negative side of Greek culture. But Roman culture also, they are very disciplined, very good in administration. They gave the whole world politics and administration and all those things. But they had when power comes, when politics comes, when administration comes, there is a defect, and that defect is cruelty. You tend to be cruel when you get power. You are merciless. You don't, you lose your mercy, because in the desire to hold on to power. So he says the Roman civilization has that fault. Indians, what is the fault? Indians were well known for their philosophy, which made them spiritual, but unfortunately, they were not very practical. So, right understanding Hindus had, but right execution, because we lacked, a balance is required. Now, that balance, as I said, is Ganesha and Skanda. See, all this, it's not haphazardly decided that Ganesha, Parvati has two sons. If you want Shakti, you have to have wisdom, right understanding, which is represent. That's why when we start our spiritual practices, we don't of course worship Skanda, that because we don't have a battlefield to conquer or battle to conquer, but we don't have to fight a battle to conquer. But if we see Ganesha, we worship him because without wisdom, without the right understanding, Ganesha gives us the right understanding. Because even the best of philosophies or best of spiritual practices, if we have a wrong understanding, so right from beginning, we will make mistakes. So that is why in everything, even in secular worship, even in puja, first you worship Ganesha and tell him, please let the understanding of my effort that I am doing, whether it is spiritual practices, earning money, or anything, please give me wisdom so that I go on the right path. Then we can pray to others to give us power, to give us execution. So there are two sons of Shiva or Parvati, that is Ganesha and Skanda. Skanda means Kartik. So he is also known as Murugan in South India. So his second son Skanda is he is the best among all the generals. So Shiva's Bhutagana, he has a huge army. So the demons used to now and then attack Vishnu, and they were very powerful. Asuras, evil people, are normally very powerful in this world. So when Devas lost the battle, it's a very common story. You take up any story, it is rather funny that Asuras are more united. So they always used to conquer, and poor Indra used to lose. Though he had all the benefits, but they were not united. They were quarreling among themselves. So finally, when they are losing the battle, they go to Shiva. That is a very common story. Many times it happens. The Vishnu himself, then he says, okay, now you go to Shiva. I can't do anything. You people have spoiled yourself by drinking too much. These devas, normally they lose the battle. You may wonder why Asuras, because Asuras have that kind of unity. Though they are evil, they are determined. So to win over these demons, to win the battle, devas run to Shiva. Then of course Shiva is very, very liberal and he even takes the poison, Nilakantha. All the poison he took, and then he said, okay, now you go. You go and fight, he will give some boon. Of course, sometimes even the Asuras went to him and got some powers, but somehow mysteriously Vishnu came and saw that they don't use their powers. Sometimes they understood that every time we defeat the Devas, they go to Shiva. So in advance they went to Shiva. And Shiva is so liberal, he will help all. He won't distinguish between Devas and Asuras. If Asuras come, that's why he is known as Ashutosha. He is very much pleased by devotion. So even if an evil person prays to him, he will give him whatever he wants. He doesn't discriminate. That is his broad nature. So that's why many devotees, they feel Shiva is more close, because they say, okay, we have these defects. Maybe Vishnu is more demanding. He will ask us to practice all these things and then come. But Shiva will not ask. If you are devoted, that's how Ravana and all those people got power, because they worshipped Shiva. So anyway, Skanda is very powerful because he's one of Shiva's son. But unless Ganesha, the wisdom is there. Because Devas did not have wisdom, they suffered. They lost the battle. They may be powerful. They may have the grace of Skanda with them, but they didn't have the wisdom of Ganesha. So all undertakings, our life is also a battle in a way. Our life is nothing but a battle of good forces and evil forces within us. There are good and bad forces outside of us. There are good and bad forces within us. So we have to win the war. So that's why we pray to Ganesha and say that I am doing this sadhana, but I don't know whether I am doing it properly. You just clear my understanding so that I do the right thing and empower myself. Now he is talking of the ocean. Sarasam api sagaraha. In Sarasa means lake. Any water body is known as Sarasa. So any ocean is definitely bigger than any lake, however big the lake may be. That suggests the infinitude of the Lord. So we discussed last time that when I used to see the ocean, because it gives you the idea of infinity. Whenever you want the mind to become calm, either you go to the Himalayas, many people go to the Himalayas, it gives you a grandeur, it gives you this infinite size. You get a glimpse of the Lord Ishvara, because that is the greatest amongst his creation. It is not Brahman, but still it points out to something very great. So the ocean suggests, if you just look at the ocean, if you see there's no end to that ocean, at least you can't see it. You don't see land anywhere. So that gives you an idea of infinitude, the idea of Ananta. There is no end to the ocean. Apparently there is no end. There is definitely an end. The ocean ends somewhere. We have so many different oceans. They call 7 oceans are there. But among all the water bodies, at least, the ocean is the biggest. So merging the mind, the little mind can be compared to small pools or lakes. Even if a broad mind, if a very spiritual mind, at the most can be compared to a big lake. As Thakur used to say, Swamiji was saying that I don't get bhava, these small devotees, they jump in ecstasy, they have so many visions, experiences. Why don't I get? So Thakur told Swamiji that your mind is not like a small pool. If an elephant goes inside, the whole pool the water will be. So that is why they jump about in emotion. But you are like a big lake. Hundreds of elephants, if they go, the water will not be disturbed. So the bigger the lake, the bigger the expanse of water, the Lord is more reflected in that. I mean, our minds are steadier. So merging the mind into bigger and bigger, if you merge into the ocean, it is like merging your petty little mind full of ego into the vast expanse of the Lord himself, and allow the Lord's mind to take charge of your destiny. So that is what is meant by. Now we'll come to the next verse, that is verse number 25. Maharshinam Bhriguraham. I am Bhrigu amongst the Maharshis, among the Rishis. Mahat Rishi is Maharshi. So among the Maharshis, Rishis are also great, but Maharshis are the special Rishis who are exceptionally full of renunciation and knowledge, wisdom and spiritual power. So among the Maharshis, I am Bhrigu. Now we'll discuss why Bhrigu is selected. What is special about Bhrigu? Bhrigu Raham, Maharshi Nam, amongst all the Maharshis, I am Bhrigu. And among Maharshis, I am Bhrigu. Yagnanam Japa Yagnosmi Sthavaranam Himalaya. This is the 25th verse. So this verse 25 says, Maharshi Nam, among the great rishis. Mahat Rishi is Maharshi. Among the great rishis, I am Bhrigu. And after that there is Gira, I forgot. Giram Asmi Ekam aksharam. Among gira, gira means among all the words. I am that one akshar. What is that akshar? We'll see. Yagnanam japa yagnosmi. Ekam aksharam, the monosyllable, that is gira. Gira means sound. See, there are different words. Among the monosyllable, I am the, among all the words, I am the sacred word. And among all the yagnas, among all the sacrifices. You see, this whole world is a sacrifice. Swami Vivekananda once said, this, a great sacrifice is going on. You see, even in nature, if you see, somebody, the tree is sacrificing, the animals are sacrificing, the plants are, the other beings are sacrificing. Somebody is sacrificing for some reason or the other. And nature is making us do that. So Swamiji says, since sacrifice is the law of nature, the idea of yajna came from this. Why japa yajna? Why do we do japa? Japa is also a sacrifice, the highest among sacrifices. So we can do other sacrifices. By dana is also a sacrifice. We earn money by our effort and then donate it. That is the lowest sacrifice. Anna dana, prana dana, vidya dana, then prana dana, and then adhyatmik dana. That is japa yagna. So among sacrifices, I am japa yagna, the sacrifice of silent repetition of the name. So japa is supposed to be done silently, not loudly, then it will become any other yajna. And sthavaranam, among immovable things, I am the Himalaya. Among mountains, I am Meru, but Himalayas, the very idea you get is the vast, the height and the immovable nature. They have been standing for centuries. They are eternal witnesses of countless people going to Himalayas. Why they are attracted? Because they are the immovable. It gives you the idea of achala, sthavara. Sthavara means that which does not move. Our life is full of movement. Our minds are moving, our bodies are moving, everything is moving and is transitory. But the moment you encounter, if the first encounter, if you do, especially when you go from Mayavati, from Shamlatal to Mayavati, when you see, in certain, when the car turns, in some places you just see greenery. Suddenly there is a gap between two hills and you see a huge mountain. You'll think how this mountain has come here. You see something, everything is changing, trees are moving, but here is the immovable among all these changes. The smaller trees and the smaller mountains in Himalayas, if you see the background of Himalayas against the smaller hills and the small trees which are all moving, but in the background you see the Himalaya is full of snow, not a single leaf is moving, not a single tree, nothing is there, even though winds come, very, very strong winds are there, except if there is a glacier which falls down. Otherwise, the Himalayas are all rock, hard rock, absolutely nothing grows there. So you get a feeling among the changing, among the movable things, among the immovable things, I am the sthavara means that which sthavara and jangama. So movable and immovable. The whole world has been divided. There are certain things which are immovable. Achala, chala and achala. So sthavara means immovable. Jangama means that which moves. Jagata, word Jagata has come from Jangama. They are having the same root. What does it mean? Constant change. So a time comes when you want something steady, something immovable in your moving life. Life is moving, changing so fast that suddenly you feel that you need some rock on which you can have your security. You can be secure. You can feel safe. So that's Sthavara you can get, you can feel when you see the Himalayas. That is why people go. So now among the rishis, these rishis were born of the mind-born children. As Sri Ramakrishna said, Rakhal is my mind-born child. What do you mean by that? They come, they inherit a portion of the mind of the Ishvara, a mind of the highest order, which is not attached to the gross. So all these Maharshis, not the ordinary rishis, they have still a little worldliness. They are rishis, experts in different fields. Even the great scientists, Charaka, they are all also known as rishis, but they are never known as Maharshis. Maharshis are the Brigu and then Vishwamitra. They are all great rishis who have realized the highest. So they are naturally born of the mind of Ishvara. So Brigu is one of the such rishis who is ever in the highest superconscious plane. So we also have the idea of Sapta Rishi, for example, one of whom was Swami Vivekananda himself. So when Thakur went there, when he visited, he saw they were all meditating in the highest superconscious plane where even Devas could not go. Thakur's vision is very significant. He saw his mind was soaring up, up, up. The mind of Ishvara, I mean, his Ishvara is the incarnation is our, their minds are one with Ishvara's mind. They are incarnations of Ishvara only. So rishis are definitely, even though they are in the highest superconscious plane, so his mind goes, there's a beautiful description. He says, even before Swami Vivekananda came to meet, he saw in a vision that he is one of the Sapta Rishis will come to you. So what did he see? He saw the mind is going up, up. It's going in a very transcendental plane, slowly, passing all the devas, all the lower rishis. The mind goes even beyond them. Then Thakur was wondering, where is this mind going? Then he says these 7 glorious rishis, the Sapta rishis. One of them is Brigu. So there they are all in such a high superconscious plane that the devas, the Indra and all the gods and goddesses whom we worship for our material gain, Varuna and Indra, and they were far, far below. And these superconscious, the Lord's glory is revealed most to these Maharshis. And among them, Brigu is one who doesn't come down. He always remains in the highest superconscious plane. So that is the highest manifestation of Ishvara. So he says, if you want to know the mind of Ishvara, meditate on the mind of Brigu. That's the idea. The vibhutis, all these things. Now, constant utterance. How to attain to that divinity, that superconscious. Constant utterance of Om. Monosyllable means Om is supposed to be monosyllable. The most sacred akshara among all the gira. Gira means among all the uttered words. Om is the Shabda Brahma. So Shabda Brahman means Brahman, if you have to grasp through sound, among all the sounds, he is Om. So his says, among all the sounds, I am Om. I am the Om is the best representation of the Ishvara or the Brahman himself. So most sacred symbol of Ishvara, sound symbol, is Om, and constant repetition. So all mantras, in fact, have Om in the beginning. There's hardly any mantra which doesn't have Om. Because this monosyllable, holding on to this, because from the sound, this creation has come. This mantra has, it's not just a technique which is just found out, I mean, by some rishi and then he said, okay, you do it. It's the Lord himself who has inspired. The reason being is, if creation has come from, the Brahman has come as Om, the first sound, then the sound manifests itself in different sounds, and Padartha, that is the matter, comes. That is the great science of sound. Sound divides itself, as it were, into other gross sounds, and they represent certain objects. And there is a theory, even in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So God himself manifests as the universe through Om. That is the idea. So why do we chant the mantra? We chant the mantra because Om brought us to this miserable state, gross state. So the only way to go is go back the way we came. We were one with Brahman. Our true nature is one with Brahman. But unfortunately, through Om and through all the other words, all the stupid words that we hear day and night, we manipulate. We live in a world full of words, at least the human beings. So all these words make us more and more confused. So the idea is to follow the reverse process, to go back to that single syllable, which is Ishvara, Om, and then that Om will one day suddenly reveal that great Brahman, that Ishvara whom we are worshipping as our Ishta. That is the idea. It is the sure means of reaching that divinity. It is equivalent, Om is equivalent to Brahman or equivalent to Ishvara. That is why among all the words, I am Om. If we understand this, then all our japa sadhana has gets a wonderful meaning. It's not just an arbitrary sadhana which has been told like other yogas. We just have 2 minutes, we'll just finish this. Now, it can be performed anytime. Then that is this japa yagna. Why yagna among the mental repetition, which is known as japa yagna, has been glorified here because you can do other yagnas. You can do dravya yagna, that is offer fruits, offer so many things, puja and all those things we do. We also do seva, lot of seva. That's also good. That is also a yagna. But they are all gross yagnas. But the highest yagna, which can take you directly to Ishvara, is the japa yagna. It can be performed at any time, any place, any location, in the midst of all activities. This is the universal benefit of following japa yagna. You can't perform rituals when you are in a professional setting somewhere. You can't have all your puja vessels and all the ritual. The more ritualistic you become, then more specific your puja is, specific to time, specific to place, then you find it very difficult. But japa yagna is something you can do when you're traveling, when you're working, anytime you go on repeating. So that is why the Lord says, among all the yagnas, far superior than all the yagnas, because it can be performed at any time in the midst of all other activities in combination with other activities, and it does not harm or hinder anybody. See, Nachiketa's father, when he did all this dana and then puja, so many people were involved. And some of them were unhappy also because he gave away bad things. I mean, cows which were not yielding milk. So there can be some faults in the rituals, but there cannot be any fault because you are doing it mentally. Of course, you have to repeat the mantra as it is given by the Guru, but it does not cause any hindrance to anybody. Even when you are traveling somewhere, I mean, not driving, of course, you can't drive and do mantra. There are some activities you can't do along with mantra, but most of the time where we do many of the activities without our conscious mind, you can consciously do this japa, and the Lord is present at that very moment when you are performing that action, because japa yagna is among the shrestha among yagnas. So the more japa yagna you do, the more you are connected to the Lord. That is the idea. Now we come to the last. If you see the whole moving beings, that is vegetable or even animals, and to some extent vegetables also, they also grow. But there are among sthavara, among jangama, there are so many beings. We are not discussing even pavaka, the wind. But some solids, they are the most immovable things in the universe. So can we not see the glory in them? There are stationary lives, very stationary. Like you find some people, very steady people. They are not, even in nature, you appreciate somebody who is a dhira. Dhira means one who is absolutely steady, who doesn't waver. His mind is steady, his personality is steady. So you appreciate. Nobody appreciates a monkey, but they appreciate a lion because of its grace, because of its steadiness, because of its very nature, which does not allow it to be restless. That is why steadiness is appreciated. Kaschit dhira antaratmanam aikshat. Yama tells Nachiketa, only a dhira can become spiritual. So, among all the movable things, there are many. But he says, among the immovable things, I am giving you an object for meditation. And among that, Himalaya is the greatest. It strikes some kind of awe, some kind of wonder. Unless you see it, once in a lifetime, everybody has to see Himalayas. The glory of Lord can be experienced, maybe we can get a faint glimpse, just as we see the ocean. So these are not just simple stories or simple examples that the Lord is giving. It really helps one to create the meditative mood. It may not give you meditation as the japa yagna and other things also, they will lead to meditation. They will lead to the realization of Brahman because they are all yagnas. They are to be done as activities. As we do other activities, we do this. And finally, you come to a state or come to a state of mind where the constant ajapa japa, as they call, where you hear the eternal voice, the anahata, the unstruck sound. Even Om, when you utter, it is a struck sound. But it leads you to the unstruck Om. The unstruck means anahata shabda. That is Brahman. So that sound, original sound from all the sounds, from which all the sounds have come, that is Ishvara. Ishvara says, I am that Om. So merge in Om, use the mantra Japa Yagna, which is the greatest among all the yagnas. Try to go follow the reverse process, and for that you have to be as steady as the Himalayas, as steady as Dhira. Kashit Dhira Antaratmanam Aikshat. He closes his eyes. Why does he close his eyes? Because he finds something immovable inside. Outside, no matter how much we focus, it is all movable, and what is movable is temporary, which causes pleasure. All these Rudras and all those other deities, they no doubt take you towards the Sthavara, but they are in the realm of Jangama. Jangama means changing world. So to give up the changing world, the Lord says you meditate on Himalayas, you meditate on the ocean, you use anything. Even the Ashwatta tree and many things will come. Ashwatta sarva vrikshanam, devarshinam cha naradaha, gandharvanam chitraratah, siddhanam kapilo munihi. Now this will require a lot of description. We'll close with verse 26, which we will discuss in the Saturday next. I mean the alternate Saturday. Next Saturday is of course the talk on Vedanta and the science of human resources. So we have clubbed these two together. Unfortunately, today I suddenly realized the class is at 5:45. Our normal class is at 7. So I will conclude now. If there are some questions, I will let us briefly discuss. I'm sorry I could not inform you in advance. There were some visitors here. So I just could inform you just 15 or 10 minutes before. So anyway, if there are some questions, you can just ask. Otherwise, we will take leave. We just exceeded the time by 5 minutes. So Maharaj, can we conclude if there are no questions? There is one question. No, there is no question. Somebody has made some remark in the chat. That is fine. So shall we conclude?
Yes, Maharaj. Most welcome.
So we will meet on the next Saturday. I mean, not the next Saturday, the Saturday next to the next Saturday.
28th May.
Okay. Yeah.